The wind howled across the frozen valley. Sharp and cold like glass, snow danced in the air, twisting in white spirals that hid the mountains. The human colony on Vega 4 slept under layers of silence, its metal domes glowing faintly under the twin moons. Inside one small cabin on the outskirts, a man named Elias Ward sat near a dim fire, watching the flames flicker weakly. His daughter Mira slept under a blanket, her little hands clutching her toy. Outside, the storm grew louder, pressing against the walls as if something alive wanted to get in. Elias sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. He had been a mechanic, once working in the main colony. Now he lived far away, fixing broken generators for food credits. He liked the quiet, the distance, the peace of the snow. But tonight peace didn't last. A sound broke through the wind, a faint cry, almost like a child's at first. Elias thought it was the storm, but the cry came again. Sharper, closer, trembling with pain. He froze, listening, heart pounding. "Dad?" Mira's sleepy voice whispered. Elias turned. "It's nothing, sweetheart." "Go back to sleep," he said softly. But the sound came again, this time a scream. Weak, muffled, but real. Mira sat up, her eyes wide. "That's a baby," she said. Voice trembling, Elias grabbed his coat. Pulling on his boots, the storm bit his face as he stepped outside. Holding a small lamp, snow whipped around him. Turning the world white and shapeless, he followed the sound, each step sinking deep into the cold. Behind him, Mira's small footsteps followed. He turned, shouting over the wind, "Mira, go back inside." But the girl shook her head, her hair full of snow. "I'm coming, Dad," she said, stubborn and scared. Together they walked toward the ridge behind their cabin. The wind screamed and the ground trembled beneath their boots. Something metallic gleamed under the snow ahead. It was half-buried, broken, and glowing faintly blue. Elias knelt, brushing away the ice, revealing strange metal, curved and smooth. It wasn't human technology. He had seen alien ships before, on screens, in war footage, but never this close. The craft was cracked open like an egg, smoke and frost rising from its wounds. Inside, through the gap, he saw movement, a shape small and trembling. The cry came again. From within, he reached in, lifting a panel of frozen metal, and gasped. Inside lay two figures, one large, one small. The larger one looked like a woman, her skin pale blue and glowing faintly under the frost, her arms wrapped around a child with silver hair and translucent skin. The child's lips were blue, his tiny body shaking. Mira gasped beside him, eyes wide with fear and awe. "Dad." "Her child is freezing," she whispered. The alien woman opened her eyes weakly. Meeting Elias's gaze, her eyes were violet, bright even in the dark. Her lips moved, forming strange words he couldn't understand. Then she went still. Elias looked around, panic rising. He knew what the colony law said. No human was to aid stranded aliens, not after the last border conflict. But the sound of the child's weak breath broke him. He couldn't leave them. He couldn't watch something so helpless die in the snow. He took off his coat, wrapping it around the alien child. Mira held the woman's frozen hand, whispering softly, "It's okay." "We'll help you," Elias grunted. Lifting the woman onto his back, the child cradled in his arms. The wind pushed against him, cold knives cutting his skin. But he kept walking, step by step, toward the faint orange light of their cabin. Inside, he laid the aliens near the fire, steam rising as the frost began to melt from their bodies. He worked fast, heating water, wrapping blankets. Mira held the child close, rubbing his arms gently, whispering things no one could hear. Elias stared at the strange beings on his floor, his heart heavy with both fear and wonder. The alien woman coughed weakly, eyes flickering open again. She tried to speak, but only a soft sound came out, a single word. Mira tilted her head, listening. She said, "Thank you." Mira whispered, surprised that she somehow understood. Elias looked at his daughter, then back at the woman. He didn't know what they had just started, but he knew one thing for sure. No matter what laws said, no matter what danger came next, he wasn't going to let them die. Outside, the storm raged harder, and far above the clouds, a faint light blinked in orbit. A signal, unnoticed by humans, was already traveling through the stars. It carried one message from the crashed ship: location found, survivors detected. Elias didn't know it yet. But saving that alien child tonight would change everything. The cabin was warm now, but the air inside felt heavy. Steam rose from the fire as snow melted off the strangers' bodies. Elias sat near them, his face pale, his mind running in circles. He had brought two aliens into his home, breaking one of the colony's strictest laws. The alien woman lay near the fire, wrapped in thick blankets, her breathing shallow but steady. Her child, small and fragile, lay beside Mira, the little girl's hands gently holding his. The boy's skin glowed faintly under the dim firelight, silver veins flickering like starlight under his flesh. Every few seconds the glow pulsed, soft, warm, and alive. Elias leaned closer, whispering, "How's he doing?" Mira looked up, her eyes shining. "He's still cold dead, but he's breathing better." The girl smiled faintly, brushing snow from the child's hair. "He's beautiful," she said softly. Elias nodded, though worry clouded his face. He looked at the alien woman. Her features were human-like but sharper, her hair a deep violet color that shimmered faintly. A strange mark ran down her neck, thin glowing lines that pulsed when she breathed. He wondered what kind of people they were, what kind of war had left them stranded here. Then the radio on the table crackled to life. A man's voice echoed through the static. "This is Sector Command. Unidentified readings near Ridge 9. Patrols are moving in. All colonists remain indoors." Elias froze, his heart thudding. Ridge 9. That was right behind his cabin. Mira's eyes widened. "Dad, are they coming here?" He shook his head quickly, turning off the radio. "No, sweetheart. They're just scanning the area." But deep inside, he wasn't sure if the patrols found these aliens here, he'd be taken away, or worse. The alien woman stirred, groaning softly. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly violet under the firelight. When she saw Elias and Mira, she flinched, trying to sit up. Her breathing quickened, her body trembling with fear. "It's okay," Elias said gently, raising his hands. "You're safe." "We helped you." She didn't understand the words, but she stared into his eyes for a long moment. Then slowly she looked at Mira. The little girl smiled at her, holding out a cup of warm water. The alien woman hesitated, then took it with shaking hands, drinking carefully. Her voice was soft and melodic, strange but gentle. She said something in her language, then looked toward the fire. Mira tilted her head. Listening carefully, she said, "Thank you again." Elias blinked. "You understood her?" Mira shrugged. "I don't know how, but it feels like I do." Elias frowned, staring at the two of them. He didn't have time to think about it. Outside, a distant humming filled the air. Search drones. Their engines gave a deep metallic sound that made the window glass shake. He peeked through the curtain and his blood turned cold. Two red lights moved slowly through the storm, scanning the snow. The drones were close. Maybe a few hundred meters away. He cursed under his breath. "Mira," he whispered urgently. "Get them to the cellar." Now the girl helped the alien woman stand. Elias lifted the small child in his arms, feeling the faint heat from the glowing veins. They moved quietly, floorboards creaking under their feet. The cellar was dark and cold but safe, hidden under the cabin's foundation. As he laid the boy down, Elias noticed something. A faint hum came from the alien child's body, like the sound of energy running through wires. He looked down, frowning. "What are you?" he muttered. The glow from the child's arm pulsed once, brighter than before, then faded again. Elias stepped back, uneasy. Above them, the humming of drones grew louder. Light beams swept across the cabin's windows. Elias held his breath, waiting. The alien woman whispered something softly, her voice trembling. Her fingers brushed against the child's forehead, and the glow dimmed completely. Then, silence. The drones passed. Their light fading into the distance, Elias let out a shaky breath. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Mira looked up at him, her small voice breaking the quiet. "Dad, what will happen if they find out?" He knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Then we'll tell them we didn't know," he lied. But deep down he knew. If they found out, they'd never believe him. Hours passed, the storm easing outside. The alien woman finally slept. Her breathing steady now, Elias sat near the cellar door. The rifle across his knees, Mira leaned against his arm, whispering, "Dad, are we in trouble?" He smiled faintly, brushing her hair. "Probably," he said softly, "but sometimes doing the right thing means trouble." The fire upstairs had dimmed, leaving the cabin in soft shadows. Elias looked down at the sleeping aliens, mother and child wrapped together. And something stirred in his heart, something he hadn't felt since his wife died years ago. Hope, maybe, or a strange sense of purpose. Then suddenly the radio crackled again. "This is Command," the voice said. "Unidentified heat signatures vanished near Sector 9. Repeating, vanished. Elias looked up sharply. The alien woman opened her eyes again. As if she understood the words, she looked toward the ceiling, whispering something that made the air around them shimmer faintly. Mira stared at her, whispering, "She says, 'More ships are coming,'" Elias frowned. "To rescue them?" Mira's voice trembled as she answered, "No, Dad. She says they're not here to rescue her." Outside, the snow began to fall harder again, and above the clouds, unseen by human eyes, dark shapes were already descending through the atmosphere. The storm outside had not stopped, but the sound of the wind no longer scared Mira. It was strange. After everything that happened, the howling snow now felt like a song. The little girl sat close to the fire, holding the alien child's hand. The warmth of the flames made his silver skin shimmer, like tiny stars trapped under his skin. Elias moved around the cabin, checking the locks. Keeping the rifle near the door, his mind was racing. The colony patrols had almost found them last night if they searched again. If anyone discovered he had aliens in his house, he'd lose everything. Still, when he looked at the child, weak and quiet by the fire, Elias knew he'd made the right choice. The alien woman was stronger now. Though she still spoke little, her violet eyes followed his every move with quiet trust mixed with worry. When she tried to stand, Elias helped her. "Easy there," he said, steadying her by the arm. She said something soft in her own tongue. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone, gratitude, and something else. Sorrow. Mira came over, her face bright with curiosity. "Dad, she's trying to say her name," the girl whispered. The alien woman touched her chest gently. "Shara," she said slowly. Mira smiled, repeating, "Shara." Then she pointed at herself. "Mira." Shara's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "Mira," she repeated. For a moment there was peace between them. Elias poured hot water into a cup and handed it to Shara. She accepted it carefully, her glowing fingers brushing his hand. The touch felt warm, not just in heat but in something deeper, something alive. He pulled his hand back, unsure why his heart suddenly felt heavy. Then the alien child stirred. A faint hum came from him, low but growing stronger. Elias leaned forward, frowning. Blue light crawled across the boy's arm, forming strange symbols that flickered like code. The mark glowed each time the fire dimmed. And when Elias threw another log in, it dimmed again. "That's not normal," he muttered. Mira tilted her head. "Dad, he's connected to the fire." Shara shook her head quickly, her voice urgent. She spoke fast, pointing at the mark, then at the window. Her tone was worried, almost fearful. Mira listened hard, eyes narrowing. "She says the mark is a beacon," Mira whispered. "If it glows too bright, they can find us." Elias's stomach dropped. He looked toward the frosted window where the storm flashed in faint white light. "They?" he asked. Mira nodded slowly. "The bad ones," she said quietly, outside. Thunder rolled through the frozen valley, though there were no clouds, only the echo of engines far above. Elias quickly smothered the fire, letting the flames die down. The light in the child's arm dimmed too, until it was only a soft pulse. He turned to Shara. "You're saying more ships are coming?" Shara met his eyes. Her expression grim, she placed her hand on her heart, then pointed upward. "They hunt," she said softly, her accent thick but clear enough. Elias understood enough to feel a chill crawl down his spine. He sat beside Mira, pulling her close. The fire was now just a bed of glowing embers, casting faint orange light across the walls. The silence was thick. Even the wind outside seemed to stop for a while, as if the world was holding its breath. Mira broke the quiet, her voice barely a whisper. "Dad, why are they hunting her?" Elias didn't know. He looked at Shara, her face half lit by the dying fire. Maybe she was a refugee, maybe a soldier, maybe something more, but whatever she was, someone wanted her and her child dead. Hours passed. Shara sat by the fire, humming softly in her language while Mira leaned against her shoulder. The sound was gentle, soothing. It made the cold cabin feel warm in a way no fire could. Elias listened from his chair, his eyes half closed but his hand still near the rifle. Then the radio on the table came alive again. "This is Patrol Unit 4, a voice said through static. "Heat signatures confirmed near Ridge 9. Stand by for confirmation." Elias jumped to his feet. His pulse racing, he turned off the radio, his heart hammering. "They found us," he whispered. Shara stood quickly, her eyes wide. She grabbed the alien child and held him close, whispering words that sounded like prayer. The blue symbols on the boy's arm glowed brighter. Elias grabbed his coat, moving to the door. "Mira, Take them downstairs, he said quickly. The girl obeyed, pulling Shara toward the cellar again. Elias stepped outside, snow crunching under his boots. The air was too quiet, too heavy. Then in the distance, a red beam cut through the storm, sweeping slowly over the ridge. Search drones, larger ones this time, armed. He ducked behind the generator shed, his breath steaming in the cold. From above, faint blue lights blinked in the clouds, ships descending, silent and deadly. Back inside, Shara held her child tightly. Mira peeked through the cellar cracks, eyes wide in fear. Dad, she whispered. Though he couldn't hear her, please come back, Elias returned minutes later, snow coating his shoulders. They're setting up scanners, he said. They'll find this place soon. Shara looked at him with desperate eyes. She reached out, placing her hand over his chest. Heart. Brave, she said softly, her voice trembling. Then she pointed at her shipwreck outside. Beacon. Destroy, Elias stared at her, realizing what she meant. The beacon in the wreck was calling the hunters. It had to be shut down. He looked at Mira, at the child glowing faintly beside her. Then back at the storm, he nodded slowly. Gripping his coat tight, keep them safe, he told Mira, his voice firm but gentle. Then he stepped out into the night again, vanishing into the blizzard. The fire flickered low. Shara closed her eyes, holding her child close, and Mira whispered softly to herself, Please, Dad, come back. Outside, lightning flashed across the snow as the hunters descended from the sky. The sky above Vega 4 was no longer silent. Hidden behind clouds, engines rumbled, deep and distant, like thunder from another world. Inside the small cabin, the air was tense, heavy, full of waiting. Mira sat by the window, peeking through the frost-covered glass. Her small hand pressed against it. Snow fell in slow flakes, glowing faintly under the twin moons. She could see shadows moving far beyond the ridge, metal shapes crawling across the white plains. Search drones hovered low, their red lights sweeping back and forth like watchful eyes. Every few seconds, one of them stopped, scanning the ground with a sharp blue beam. In the cellar below, the alien woman, Shara, rocked her child in silence. The boy's glow had dimmed to a faint flicker, but his breathing was still weak. Each time the ground trembled from engines above, Shara flinched, pulling him closer. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the dark, filled with both fear and strength. Elias had not returned yet. He had gone to the wreck, walking straight into the blizzard to destroy the beacon that was calling the hunters. Mira had begged him not to go, but he'd only smiled, kissed her forehead and whispered, Be brave for me now. Every second that passed without him felt heavier than the last. Mira climbed down into the cellar. Shara, she whispered softly. He's been gone too long. The alien woman looked up, understanding the tone if not the words. She reached out and placed a glowing hand over Mira's heart. Strong, she said quietly. He come back. Mira smiled faintly, even though tears shimmered in her eyes. She sat beside Shara, listening to the storm outside. The wind howled like a living thing, but beneath it, there was something else. A faint mechanical hum growing louder each moment. Then the radio upstairs crackled again. Mira ran up the steps, careful to stay low near the window. The voice came through the static, cold and commanding. This is Patrol Commander Reyes to all units. Unknown energy detected at Grid 9A, possibly alien tech. Move to contain immediately. Her heart dropped. 9A, that was where her father had gone. She grabbed the radio, pressing the button with trembling hands. Dad, come in, she whispered. Please answer. Only static replied. Shara appeared behind her, standing silently near the doorway. She didn't need to ask. She could see the fear in Mira's eyes. The alien woman closed her eyes, pressing her hand to the child's forehead. Soft light flowed from her palm to the boy's skin, and for a moment he glowed brighter. Then Shara spoke, her voice low, melodic, full of strange power. The air in the cabin changed. The flames flickered higher for a second, and Mira felt something, a whisper in her mind, a distant sound like voices carried by wind. She turned toward the window, eyes wide. Shara, what did you do? She asked. The alien woman pointed upward. Listen, she said through the storm. Through the roar of the engines, Mira heard it. Not in her ears, but in her head. A voice clear and mechanical, speaking in a strange language that still made sense to her. Target locked, non-human survivors confirmed. Proceed to neutralize. Her blood turned cold. They found him, she whispered. They found Dad. She looked at Shara, desperate. We have to help him. The alien woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. She grabbed Mira's hand and pressed it against the child's glowing mark. Blue light flashed through the cabin. Mira gasped as a vision filled her mind. Images of the ridge, of Elias running through the snow, of the wreck burning under searchlights. Drones hovered above him, aiming their weapons. He was trying to break a glowing device near the ship. The beacon, but there were too many of them. Shara's voice broke through the vision. "Calm but strong, show way," she said, pointing at Mira. Mira nodded quickly. Her heart pounding, she threw on her coat and boots, helping Shara wrap her child in thick blankets. Together they stepped out into the freezing storm. The wind tore at them immediately. Snow whipped across their faces, the cold biting into their skin. But they kept moving, Mira leading with a small lantern, Shara following behind, carrying her son close. The ridge glowed faintly ahead, flashes of red and blue light breaking through the storm. When they reached the wreck, Mira stopped, gasping. The ship was half destroyed now, its metallic frame burning from within. Around it, 3 drones hovered, scanning the ground. In the middle of the chaos, Elias stood, clutching a piece of metal in one hand, firelight reflecting in his eyes. "Dad," Mira shouted before she could stop herself. Elias turned sharply, eyes wide when he saw them. "Mira, get back," he yelled, waving his arm. One of the drones turned toward the sound, its red light locking onto them. Before it could fire, Shara raised her hand. A burst of violet light shot from her palm, slamming into the drone with a thunderous crack. The machine spun out of control, crashing into the snow in a burst of sparks. Elias stared in shock, but there was no time to speak. The other drones opened fire, beams of light cutting through the storm. Elias ran toward them, grabbing Mira and pulling her behind a rock. Shara fell to her knees, shielding her child with her own body. The snow exploded around them, smoke and fire mixing in the freezing air. Then the beacon began to glow brighter. A rising hum filled the valley, shaking the ground. Elias looked at it and shouted, "It's overloading!" He turned to Shara. "Can you stop it?" She shook her head, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Not stop," she said softly. "Only call." "Call who?" he shouted. Before she could answer, the sky split open. A streak of silver light tore through the clouds, something huge descending. Silent and terrible, Mira clung to her father's arm. "Eyes wide with fear, Dad," she whispered. "They're coming." Elias looked up at the falling light, and for the first time he realized whatever was coming wasn't just searching. It was hunting. The storm screamed louder than before, but now it was mixed with something else, machines. The air shook with a low metallic roar as giant shadows moved above the clouds. Vega 4's white sky turned red and blue from the lights of ships breaking through the storm. Elias could feel the ground vibrate under his boots. The snow shifting like waves, he pulled Mira close, shielding her from the burning wind that came from the wreck. The beacon was glowing brighter, its hum turning into a piercing whine beside him. Shara stood with her child in her arms, her violet eyes glowing fiercely. The blue mark on the boy's arm shone so bright it lit the snow like a torch. "Shara!" Elias shouted over the noise. "It's calling them." "You said it's a beacon. How do we stop it?" She looked at him, her face full of pain and fear. "No stop," she said, her accent thick. "Call is done." Mira's small hand gripped Elias's coat. "Dad, what's coming?" she whispered. Elias looked up at the dark sky and answered softly, "I don't know." A bright flash exploded overhead. Through the clouds, a massive ship descended, shaped like a spear of black glass. Lightning crawled across its surface, lighting up the snowstorm in flickers. The sound of its engines was so deep that Elias could feel it inside his bones. He had never seen alien ships this close before. Human colonies had fought them years ago, but this was different. This ship wasn't here to attack cities or armies. It had come for one thing, or rather, for one person. Shara's body trembled, her eyes wide with horror. She whispered something in her language. Rocking her child, Mira looked up at her, tears in her eyes. "What's she saying, Dad?" Elias didn't answer, but Shara did, her voice breaking. "They come. For him." The child's glowing mark flared again, brighter. The hum grew so loud that the snow around them began to rise, floating in the air like dust. Then, beams of light shot down from the black ship, scanning the valley. Elias grabbed Shara's arm. "We have to move." They ran through the storm, the wind clawing at their faces every few seconds. The sky flashed as the ship fired something, a pulse, a wave that knocked over trees and melted the snow. Elias stumbled but kept running. Mira tripped, crying out, and he pulled her up again. his lungs burning from the cold air behind them. The alien wreck exploded in a burst of blue fire. The beacon was gone, but the ship above didn't stop. Instead, a voice echoed across the valley. Not through speakers, but inside their heads. "Return the child," it said, cold and mechanical. "Or perish." Mira covered her ears, screaming, "Dad, make it stop." Elias could barely hear her, his vision blurred, his body shaking from the vibration of the voice. He looked back and saw Shara fall to her knees, clutching her son tightly. Blood trickled from her nose as the sound grew sharper. "No," Elias shouted, running back. "Get up! You'll die out here." He grabbed her arm, but Shara shook her head. Her eyes burned with defiance, and she shouted something toward the sky. Mira didn't understand the words, but she could feel their meaning. It was anger, it was love, it was refusal. The sky answered with another blast. The snow exploded around them, throwing Elias and Mira to the ground. He rolled over, grabbing his daughter, his ears ringing. When he looked up, he saw Shara standing tall in the storm, her body glowing from within. The mark on her child's arm shone so bright now that the night turned white. Shara raised her free hand and the air rippled around her. Lightning curved, snow melted into steam, and the ground cracked open. She screamed a single word that echoed through the valley, a word that made even the storm pause. Then the light burst outward. The black ship above flickered, its shields trembling under the blast of energy. For a moment the engines faltered, and the deep hum broke into static. Elias shielded Mira's face, shouting her name. When the light faded, Shara was on her knees again, her glow fading fast. He ran to her, dropping beside her in the snow. "Shara, what did you do?" he asked, his voice breaking. She looked up weakly, her eyes dim. "I call friend," she whispered. Her hand trembled as she pointed to the horizon. Elias followed her gaze, and there, in the distance, something moved. A new light appeared, golden and warm, breaking through the clouds from the opposite side of the sky. It was smaller than the black ship, but faster, sharper, alive. A streak of fire cut through the storm. Heading straight toward them, Mira gasped, "Dad, is that another one of them?" Elias squinted, and for a second he thought he saw a human symbol burned onto the hull. "It's a rescue ship," he said softly, "but not theirs." The black ship turned, firing beams of energy toward the new arrival. The two ships collided in the sky, flashes of blue and gold lighting up the storm. Thunder rolled across the valley like the sound of worlds colliding. Elias held Mira close as shockwaves shook the ground. Shara fell forward, clutching her child, whispering softly to him. Her voice was fading, but her eyes were peaceful. Mira crawled to her side, holding her hand. "Please don't go," the little girl whispered, her tears falling onto the snow. Shara smiled weakly, her lips trembling. "Human, kind," she whispered. "Your fire, save us all." And then her eyes closed, her body going still. The golden light from the sky descended lower, closer, until Elias could see the outline of a ship landing through the blizzard. He stood holding Mira and looking at the fallen alien mother. The storm had broken, but what came next would change everything. The sky glowed red and gold as two ships battled above the frozen valley. Energy beams cut through the clouds, turning snowflakes into steam. Each explosion echoed like thunder rolling across a dying world. Elias stood in the middle of it all, holding Mira close, his breath white in the cold. Shara lay motionless in the snow, her child glowing faintly in her arms. The golden rescue ship had landed not far away, its engines humming softly. Human symbols were etched into its side, the old insignia of the United Earth Fleet. For a moment, Elias couldn't believe his eyes. No human ship had come to Vega 4 in years. The ramp opened and figures stepped out. Humans, armored in gray suits, their faces hidden behind glass visors. They moved with precision, scanning the area with blue lights. One of them called out, his voice echoing through a speaker. "Identify yourself." Elias raised a shaking hand. "I'm Elias Ward, colonist mechanic. My daughter's with me." The soldiers hesitated, then lowered their weapons slightly. But their commander pointed at the bodies in the snow. "Are those alien survivors?" he demanded. Elias's heart raced. He looked down at Shara's still form and her weakly glowing child. He could still hear her last words, "Your fire. Save us all." He tightened his grip around Mira's shoulder. "They're not enemies," he said firmly. "They need help." The commander stepped closer, visor reflecting the blue glow of the alien child. "Help?" he repeated coldly. "You don't understand what you've brought here." Behind him, the golden ship's scanners beeped rapidly. Detecting the child's signal, the soldier turned toward his team, his voice tense. He's the signal source. That's the reason they came. Elias frowned. What are you talking about? The commander's tone dropped low, heavy with anger. The alien fleet up there, they've been tracking that child for weeks. That beacon in his body could bring their entire army to this planet. He looked straight at Elias. If we don't shut it down, everyone on Vega 4 dies, Mira gasped. Clutching her father's arm, Elias stared at the boy, glowing faintly in the snow. His chest rising weakly. Shut it down, Elias said quietly. He's just a child. The commander's voice hardened. He's not just a child, he's a weapon. Elias shook his head, his heart pounding. He remembered how the boy had held Mira's hand, how he had smiled when the fire warmed him. He couldn't see a weapon, only life, fragile and innocent. The wind roared again, carrying the distant sound of engines. The black ship was returning, its shadow growing larger across the snow, sir. We're out of time, one soldier shouted. The alien ship is charging weapons, the commander nodded. Turning back to Elias, step away, he ordered. We're taking the child. Mira moved in front of the alien boy, spreading her arms wide. No, she cried. You can't hurt him, he didn't do anything wrong. Elias grabbed her shoulders, whispering, Mira, please move back, but his voice trembled. His own heart torn between fear and love. The commander stepped forward, his soldiers raising their weapons. Get the kid, he ordered. Elias moved instinctively, standing between them and the boy. You'll have to go through me, he said, voice low and steady. The commander froze, his hand tightening on his blaster. Do you know what you're doing? He asked coldly. You're protecting an alien experiment, not a life. Elias met his gaze without flinching. Maybe, he said, but that's still more human than killing a child. Lightning flashed above as the black ship descended again. Its engines roared, melting the snow in wide circles. The humans looked up, panic in their movements. Elias turned toward Shara's child, whose glow was growing brighter again. Mira knelt beside the boy, whispering, It's okay. We're here. The mark on his arm pulsed, stronger each time she spoke. Then suddenly, a voice filled their minds, the same mechanical tone as before. Target located. Initiating recovery. The black ship fired a beam toward the ground. It struck near them, sending a wave of heat and force that threw everyone off their feet. Elias hit the snow hard, coughing, his vision spinning. Through the haze, he saw the alien child rising into the air, surrounded by blue light. No, Mira screamed, running toward him. Elias crawled after her, reaching out. Then, through the roar of the storm, a familiar voice echoed in his mind. Soft and broken, human heart. Brave to protect the flame. It was Shara. Elias looked up and saw her body glowing faintly again. Her eyes opened, bright and full of light. Though she was too weak to move, her voice came again. Carried by the storm, one choice. Only one. The beam from the black ship grew brighter, pulling at the boy like a magnet. The human commander shouted something, but Elias couldn't hear him anymore. He looked at Shara, at her dying eyes, then at the child reaching helplessly toward the sky. He knew what she wanted him to do. Elias ran, snow flying behind him. He grabbed the child in his arms, the blue energy burning against his skin. Mira screamed his name, but he didn't stop. He looked up at the descending beam and whispered, If this saves them, then take me instead. The light wrapped around him. For a moment, everything went silent. No wind, no noise, no fear, only light. The child's glow spread into Elias's chest, and the hum of the beacon changed. Instead of a call for war, it became a signal of peace. Far above, the black ship stopped. Its engines went dark and its weapons lowered. The golden human ship hovered nearby, scanning the change. A voice from the human commander whispered in disbelief. He changed the signal. The clouds parted, and a soft beam of golden light broke through. Mira stood in the snow, watching as her father and the child rose together. Surrounded by the calm glow, tears streamed down her face. She didn't know if it was goodbye or the beginning of something greater. Above the frozen world, the storm finally began to fade. The sky above Vega 4 was no longer dark, where there had been storm and shadow. Now a new light shimmered across the clouds, soft, golden, and alive. It spread like dawn over the snow-covered valley. Mira stood there, her small hands shaking, watching her father disappear into that shining glow. The golden beam rose higher, carrying Elias and the alien child upward together. Around them, the storm dissolved, the snow floating weightless in the air. The black warship above stopped firing. Its weapons turning dim, even its engines went silent. As if the universe itself was holding its breath, Mira could still see her father's face through the radiance. He looked calm, peaceful, no fear in his eyes anymore. He held the child close, his body glowing brighter with every second. Shara's voice echoed faintly through the wind, her words soft and full of power. 2 hearts, 1 flame, 1 hope. Then, the light exploded outward. A ring of golden fire spread across the entire valley. Stretching up into the clouds, the blast wasn't hot. It wasn't violent, it was warm. Gentle, pure, where it touched. Ice melted. Machines shut down and the storm broke apart like fragile glass. The black ship tried to pull away, but the golden light reached it too. Its armor shimmered, its engines flickered. And then it froze in the air. For the first time, it stopped hunting. From its hull, blue light leaked through cracks like veins of peace spreading through a machine that once knew only war. Down below, Mira fell to her knees. Her breath caught in her throat. "Dad?" she whispered, her tears falling into the snow. The light faded slowly, like the last ember of a dying fire. When it was gone, the sky turned clear again, and where her father had stood, there was only stillness. Shara lay nearby, barely breathing. Her body pale and cold, Mira crawled to her, holding her hand tightly. The alien woman opened her eyes weakly. "The violet glow now faint, is he?" she whispered, struggling for words. Mira nodded, tears shining on her cheeks. "He's gone, but he saved us." Shara smiled softly, though her lips trembled. Her gaze lifted toward the sky, where faint trails of gold still shimmered. "Human, heart of sun," she whispered. "He changed the dark." Her voice broke as she looked at her child, who was now lying peacefully beside her. The mark on his arm no longer glowed, but his small chest rose and fell gently, alive, calm, safe. In the distance, the human soldiers stood silent, their weapons lowered. They had seen everything, the blast, the peace, the miracle, even the commander, cold and iron-faced, could not speak. He removed his helmet slowly, staring at the sky. His voice was rough when he finally whispered, "He did what none of us could." The black alien ship above began to move again, but not in anger. Instead it turned away, slowly drifting toward the horizon. No weapons, no chase, no war, just quiet retreat. The golden human ship followed, escorting it like a guardian. 2 enemies, side by side under a peaceful sky. Hours passed, the storm was gone, the valley calm. Mira sat by the fire inside the cabin once more. The same fire her father had lit days ago. It burned brighter now, warm and alive, as if carrying a piece of his spirit. Shara rested on a blanket nearby, her child asleep beside her. Outside, the snow glittered under the returning sunlight. Mira looked at the alien boy, his silver hair glowing faintly in the warmth. She reached out, gently brushing his forehead. "You're safe now," she whispered. "My dad made sure of it." The boy stirred, his eyes opening slowly, clear, bright, and full of innocence. He looked at her and smiled, and in that smile, she saw her father's courage reflected back. Shara's voice came softly, almost like a prayer. "He saved 2 worlds," she said, her accent gentle now. "Human and mine. No more fear." Mira nodded. "He wanted that," she said. "He wanted everyone to stop fighting." Shara reached over, placing a hand on Mira's chest. "His fire live here," she said. "Keep it outside." The sound of engines echoed again, not of war, but of landing craft. New ships descended from the clouds, carrying envoys from both species. Humans and aliens stepped onto the same snow for the first time without guns in their hands. They saw the light still glowing faintly across the ice, the remnants of Elias Ward's final act. The commander from the golden ship knelt beside Mira. He looked at her with weary eyes. "Your father was a good man." Mira nodded quietly, her small voice steady. "He said doing the right thing means trouble," she said, smiling through tears, "but sometimes it also means peace." The soldiers exchanged glances. Silent and thoughtful for the first time, none of them spoke about orders, or laws, or sides. They only looked at the sky, where the last of the golden light faded into the morning sun. Shara stood weakly, her child in her arms. She looked at Mira one last time, her eyes full of gratitude. "Human child," she said softly, "your father's heart will be remembered in stars." Then she walked toward the waiting ships, her footsteps light in the snow. Mira stood alone for a long time, watching the sky grow brighter. She could almost hear her father's voice in the wind. Be brave, sweetheart, it whispered, and keep the fire burning. She smiled, wiping her tears. Then she turned toward the cabin, the fire inside still glowing strong. Above her, the clouds parted one last time. A beam of sunlight touched the frozen world, warm and golden. And for the first time since the storm began, Vega 4 felt alive again. The light that saved them had not only ended a war, it had reminded every living being across two species that hope was human.